What's up, strength entrepreneurs? Hope everybody's having a great week. It's still freaking cold here in New Jersey, and it's not sunny today, so it's just plain miserable. Okay? I love the winters here in the Northeast. Everybody says they love the seasons, but I do not. Okay? One day you'll be seeing me in Cali, little fedora, nice, t-shirt, pair of shorts and sandals, and I'll be ready to go. Today I want to talk about teaching as the ultimate form of knowledge and education for yourself. Okay? Anytime that you take time to break down a subject, study it, learn it in and out, read every book you can, go learn from the other people who are doing it, right? Take all that information, take your notes, right? And then rewrite it and put it into a teachable form, whether that's a podcast, whether that's, education for your staff, whether that's, like us with our internship program, passing the education and knowledge down from one generation of coaching, myself to the next, Dan and Mike and the guys to the next, to the newest guys in the gym. Okay, every time that you do that, you level yourself up, right? As a mentor, as a leader, and your knowledge base. And I don't know anybody who's spent that type of time learning a subject and then turns around and teaches it to somebody else that doesn't truly know it. Okay? By teaching it to somebody, you're going to be able to work through all different types of problems. How can I express this information in a way that, in the simplest form, that everybody can understand it, that we could take away a ton of usable information, and that they can then turn around and use it to teach somebody else, right? Whether that's a client or another junior coach or something like that. And whether it's every time I've taught my crew anything about shoulder assessment, right, I've learned something. Anytime we've done something as simple as teaching people how to bench press or box squat, right, which we've done with every single employee, even our admin staff, you have to learn the basics of training it to work for us, right? You don't have to be an expert, but you have to at least understand what we're trying to convey to people, right? And every time I've done that, I learned something. I learned something about, timing. I learned something about body position. I learned something about the different kinematics for different body types, right? So, maybe you get somebody under the bar who's super tall, and you could work through some issues as to why taller individuals with long femurs have a tougher time getting backwards in their squat, things like that, right? So there's all different things that you can learn, especially in a group environment. So when I get together and do an in-session with my team, it's like I got 5 or 6 world-class strength coaches there, and we're bouncing ideas off each other, we're bouncing philosophies off each other, and we're learning from each other, and we're passing information around, right? So like I might have come in there with the agenda of educating everybody, but at the end of it, I left with a boatload of education myself, right? Because everybody has a different eye and a different spin on things, and we all have different knowledge sets and things that we're into. So take that information, like a Big Mike, right? Big Mike's a world-class strongman competitor, and he's looking at it from the standpoint of pure strength and competitive strength, and he's like, oh well, maybe if we did this, and it's like, oh, all right, Mike, that sounds great, and so there's all different forms of learning, but teaching people and educating people is really, in my eyes, the highest form of education for yourself, right? Because it forces you to really study the information and then get through those nerves and get through all those personal roadblocks of having the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, and getting up in front of people and teaching. So what are some things you could do? Well, you can start super simple and just start teaching the people in your gym, right? And also, this goes for business too. Don't just spend time on the X's and O's. If that's your comfort zone, start there. But don't forget to teach people the art of the sale. Don't forget to teach people the art of communication. Don't forget to teach your staff the art of follow-up, right? Because there's nothing worse than terrible follow-up, right? Somebody comes in and spends $1,000 on training, and nobody sends them an email. Nobody calls them to thank them, or you send them something to their house or whatever it might be. But follow-up is critical in the small gym, private gym space, because if you're going to pay a premium price, you want to have premium service. So start by educating your staff. Start by hosting some in-sessions. Do a sales review. Do a knee protocol, in session. Anything that you could think of for people with knee injuries or lower back injuries is hugely popular in our adult population, right? So like you got back injuries, shoulder injuries, neck injuries, knee injuries, ankle mobility. There's 5 in-sessions that you can do over the next couple weeks or months to educate your crew, but also educate yourself, right? Don't forget to get out and do a podcast, right? Dan and I started doing podcasts years ago, really, to spread the information, but I wanted to film, our original podcast was called The Beef Lab. It's still on iTunes. You can check that out at Varsity House Gym, The Beef Lab. And that was a training podcast that we did. And I really filmed those because I wanted to film, I wanted to talk about some of the hot topics in our gym. It was really done for educating my staff. Now, when we have an intern, they watch all those podcasts, and it covers everything from our year-round periodization for high school athletes, training female athletes, adult populations, maximal effort training, stuff like that. So, now when I come in, I say, okay, great, you're going to watch these 10 hours of podcast, and it's like getting 10 hours of education with me, right? So that forced me to do my research. It forced me to lay it all out in a concise format. It forced me to create like an outline and a baseline of information that I was going to teach, right? And it was super important, I think, for me to transcend just being a great coach on the floor to being a great leader, mentor, teacher to other strength entrepreneurs and business owners, as well as my coaching staff and so on, right? So you can go with a podcast. Get out in your community, right? I'll speak anywhere that they'll have me. I do career days at the high schools. I do town fairs. I've spoken at a senior center years ago. When I was first starting out, I had a friend whose mom was the head nurse at a senior center, and they asked me to come in and talk about exercising and nutrition for the aging population. And there was like 6 people there, and they were all in their 90s, and they were like, right? And I'm talking about exercise and nutrition, and they're eating senior home slop food and getting wheeled around in a wheelchair. So not exactly the ideal not exactly the ideal audience, but nonetheless I created information that I have still used since that day. And that's really the point, is that when you take the time to create the information, create the way to teach the information, it'll stick with you forever, and you'll never forget it, and you will yourself have leveled yourself up and educated yourself to a level that you didn't previously have. So that's my tip for everybody. Start educating your staff, start educating your team, teach anybody and everybody you can. Get out of your comfort zone, get out in front of a group of people and teach, and educate. Take care, everybody.